Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm doing an acrylic time-lapse video where I talk through my thoughts on this painting. It's a 12 by 12 inch acrylic on wood panel time-lapse still life video. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoy. I talk through a little bit about how I approach value and how that helps me lead through a painting. And I also talk about how I approach detail and how I avoid getting caught up in the minutia of the detail, especially early in the painting. So yeah, and the other thing I wanted to mention before I dive into the video is people always ask how long a painting takes me, and I usually don't have a very good way of saying. I'm always like, an hour or two. I swear I'm time blind. But I was editing this morning and I looked at the data and it looks like it took me about 2 hours. The breakdown of that is about 30 minutes on day 1, and then I came back and it was an hour and a half on day 2. If I cut out all the little breaks, it was 1 hour and 38 minutes of actual painting. And so, yeah, I don't know if that's interesting information for you guys, but people always ask, and I finally have an answer. I will say this is a composition I'm familiar with, and still life is a subject I'm familiar with. So if I was doing something like a portrait or something a lot more like novel to me, it would take quite a bit longer. But so something that's kind of in my wheelhouse, best case scenario, 2 hours, 12 by 12. I don't know if that's helpful information. I get asked that question a lot, and I finally have an answer. So anyways, stick around. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoy. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're interested in my workshop, I have a link in the show notes below, and yeah, follow me on Instagram. Thanks guys, enjoy the video. All right, so once again, I'm starting out with a phthalo blue green shade titanium white mixture, and I'm painting on a wood panel that I've primed with like a cadmium red or a vermilion type hue. I'm going in with some of my darker values first, like usual. And then I'm working my way up to this whitish purple color. Yeah, so typically what I do is I start with my dark values and kind of work my way up the value scale. If you're unfamiliar with value, basically it's not the saturation of the color, but how light or dark a color is. So like number 1 on the value scale would be white, and number 10 would be black. And so you're just going from darkest to lightest, lightest to darkest. And that's kind of how I tackle my paintings. I don't work from like left to right or object to object. I choose to work through the value scale as a way to orient myself in the painting. So you can see here, even though I've just generalized the painting, I've already done so much work. And so my advice always to new painters, sometimes people get overwhelmed by the details, is to not even focus on the details for the first, 2/3 of your painting. You're just making big general shapes, and then slowly as the painting starts to emerge, you can make those detail choices and you have a lot more information to work from. It's really hard to paint details when you don't have any information, and so if you just do the general shapes first and make a really general painting, then you can go in with details and it makes a whole lot more sense. So yeah, that's what I'm starting to do at this point. I'm starting to get more detail work in, more information in, but I already have so much to work from that I can make those value and color choices with a little bit more confidence. And I'm not doing a redraw here, which is sometimes I do it in my other work where I go back and I redraw things and I correct drawing errors. At this point, the only real drawing error I have at this, to my opinion anyways, is the jam lid, which I know I can go back and fix later when I do more detail work. So I'm pretty happy with the placement of everything, so I'm not going to do that step. Instead, I'm just going to keep looking for these little bits of extra information or details. And I remember the first thing that kind of came to life was this knife. And if you notice, it's not that I've rendered it perfectly. I've just looked and found those little value shifts in the knife. And it's actually just a bunch of lines and smudges. But if you stay really honest with what you're painting, it starts to look like, a knife. It's really cool. It's like an optical illusion. Now I'm going in and putting some dimension on the fruit. Most of the fruit is red, so I'm just using more orangey reds on the strawberries, and I'm using a little more of that quinacridone magenta on the plums. And this plum specifically, it's not the inside flesh, so it's more purple. The lid was really fun to paint and have come together, but for that I'm just looking for, again, those little value shifts, and I'm using a size 1 flat brush to paint those little little checkerboard pieces in. So it looks more complicated than it is, but if you look at it closely, I'm just painting squares, so it's not actually that hard. Yeah, so reworking on that plum, adding in that bloom. Bloom is really fun to paint. It's easy to go overboard with painting the bloom on like a peach or a plum, but yeah, it's really fun if you can nail it. And once again, I'm going back over with this white. This is twofold: one, to bring the value up, and then secondly, to also carve out the shape of the objects a little bit more accurately. So instead of like drawing something perfectly, I tend to overpaint it a little bit, with the understanding that I will come back later and clean it up if I need to. Not only is this more accurate, I find, but I really like the dialogue between carving out shapes versus just painting them in. And one thing that it used to frustrate me when I was a new painter was the shapes kept growing and growing and growing. And so if you have a way to refine built into your process, it helps things look really sharp and accurate. Yeah, now I'm just painting the jam. This is always fun to do, the way it catches light and all the different little values in there. And the finishing little bits. So I'm just adding the last little bits of detail. People always ask, how do you know when to stop? And basically it's when you stop seeing things jump out as like, oh, I need to fix that. You know, you sort of get to a point where you're like, okay, if I keep working on this, I'm going to start working backwards. I'm going to start making things look worse. So that's kind of how I know. Usually it takes me putting in one extra detail and I'm like, okay, too far. So, and if you remember, I said that I would fix the accuracy of that jam later, and I added some bulk to the lid part, and it kind of fixed some of those drawing issues. It's not perfect, but I'm never aiming for photorealism. I'm just sort of wanting the values and lights to look really good. I'm wanting there to be a strong sense of direct light, and so I'm more interested in that than I am things being photorealistic, especially with the drawing. But yeah, I think I'm about done at this point. So here's some close-up shots. You can see it looks from a distance like it's really accurate, but it's really pretty brushy and loose and, you know, just really fun and light. And that's kind of the energy I'm trying to keep going the whole painting. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching that come together. If you want to see a longer form version of that, be sure to sign up for my workshop. I do a longer talk through over there where I really break down the value choices I'm making. So yeah, thanks for watching. Follow me, subscribe, and see you later. Thank you.